Alright, and welcome back. Here we're going to be talking about wireframing. And wireframing is basically building out the layout that we're going to use for our magazine. You can use this in website design, mobile app design, and you're not putting in graphical pictures or colors generally. You're just building kind of the skeleton framework of whatever you're building or whatever you're going to design. And in our case, it's going to be a magazine. So I'm going to start off by inserting an artboard. So I'll hit A on my keyboard for artboard, and I'll choose from paper sizes here. I'm just going to go letter. Looks like it swallowed up some of my magazines. Let's go ahead and grab those and drag them back out. So what I'm going to do now is just build out the framework of my magazine using elements from these design inspirations over here, these covers, and just pick little things that I like and try to build out the layout. So I will go ahead and do that now, and then I'll explain what I have and what I came up with. So just as a reminder, I'm building my own magazine layout here based on my interests and the things that I like in these design inspirations, these covers. So when you go out and you do the same during the challenge portion and you're replicating this process, you don't want to exactly duplicate what I have here. You want to find things that you like and add the things that you want to incorporate in your design. So this should be based on your likes, your dislikes, etc. Alright, so after working through it and pulling things from my inspiration over here, this is the magazine layout that I came up with. So it's just the wireframe portion, kind of a rough mock-up, call it low fidelity. Doesn't have any graphical images on it. But I've got my text up here, my title, it's nice and big. Decided to put a line of text at the top here. So this I pulled from this magazine over here on the left with the same shape layout on the back here. I did like that circle from this magazine cover here, so I kind of grabbed that and did the border and have that there. And I have kind of placeholders for my titles and items I'm going to put here. I'm not sure what specifically I'm going to put there, but we'll figure that out. This, I really like that photograph with the drop shadow, so I added that here. I think that would look kind of cool. And then lastly, this kind of cut out. I don't know if I'm going to keep it like this. Depends on what I'm going to put. A lot of this is dependent on the image that I put on here, so I may have to adjust the length of the text if things are kind of overlapping the image that I'm going to use. So if you do have an image in mind, it might be good to grab that, and we'll talk about that in the next lesson once I actually grab a photograph. We'll also talk text and text styles and where to grab those as well. But for now, this is my very rough mock-up. So not to say that for now won't change. Let's get on and get jump into the design process. This is my general layout. Next video that I really care about that I want to add to it. So with this will be my starting point, my baseline for when I start creating the actual magazine cover. Okay, so I showed you guys where I got the inspiration from, but I quickly wanted to run through this and show you a little bit more of how I created some of these items, just so you have that knowledge. And also, you'll be able to find this file, which has the final product. It has basically everything we did in all these lectures in the resources section at the beginning in the first lecture. So be sure to download that if you're having questions or you want to know how I did a particular thing. You'll be able to jump into Sketch and kind of pick it apart yourselves. So starting with the title, I used a very large block font. I got this from defont.com. This one's called the Next Font. And I just increased the size till I got it to what I wanted. Another option, if you're finding that your title is getting a little bit too big, maybe using a different font, you can also increase the character spacing. The character spacing increases the amount of space between each individual character. So you can effectively grow your text across the screen rather than increasing the size height-wise. I also added a border around here, which was one of my inspirational elements. Next, in terms of the text, I didn't do anything crazy here. I just created text and increased the size, decreased the size, changed the color here. The backgrounds here are just rectangles. So I drew out rectangles and then maybe drop the opacity down on some of these if I want to see through it. Nothing special there. For this guy here, I just created two ovals. The first oval I created, let's hit O on keyboard here. I created the first oval and then I went in and threw a rectangle over the top here, did a Boolean operation to subtract to get that little cutaway on the side. So then for the inner shape, I basically just took a duplicate of this shape here, so it would already have the cutaway. Shrink it down a little bit by holding Alt-Shift. And then in the inspector, I just applied a border, increased it a bit. And I think one thing I'm going to do is, if I don't keep it like that with the border, I'm going to throw in a dash. So I'll show you an example here. If I add a dash of like 5 and then a gap of 5, you can see here, we'll zoom in, that there's a broken line here now. So it's a 5 pixel dash and then a 5 pixel gap. And you can play with that however you want. The text is basically just text items, nothing crazy there. For this shape here, let me show you that real quick. So I drew out a rectangle, started with that, and then from the insert menu, added in a triangle because there's no shortcut for triangle. Hopefully one of these days they do that. Now I can't rotate it yet, I can just draw it out. So what I want is kind of a longer rectangle, something like that there. Change the color. And then I rotated this about 90 degrees, move it right along the side there. And it's important when you do that to get these edges right up against the corners here. So when I push it over, first of all, I want it centered. I want this point here centered in the middle of that rectangle. And then I'm going to push it over, select both of those shapes, and then choose subtract. So now I have that little cutaway there. And if you need to, you can open it up in your layers panel. If you wanted it to be a little bit farther over, you could do that. You also have the option to double click, let's see, select that triangle on your layers panel, click the edit button up in the toolbar, and then you can further kind of play around with it if you wanted it to come in more, if you wanted it to come in less, something like that. So there's that. And then lastly for this guy here, nothing, no big deal there. I just created a rectangle. I added a drop shadow to it. So drop shadow, added like a, probably more than just a 2, so like 4 and 4 for the X and Y. Maybe increase the spread just a little bit to make it come out. And then lastly, I just rotated it a bit. So click rotate in the toolbar, rotate that around. I changed the fill color to white. And then I usually add these X's when I'm doing wireframes just to denote an image is going to be placed there. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. Just a little bit more information for you to help you out in your design process. Thanks for watching. In the next section, we're going to go through the actual design phase of the magazine cover, which is really exciting. Now that you put in all that hard work for the brainstorming, the gathering of inspiration, and the wireframing, you get to actually draw from all that inspiration, all that work you've done to make the cover. Alright, let's get started. I'll see you guys there.